Let's talk about hurricanes. Dr. Knabb here with us now that Mike spoiled the fun at the beaches. There are some areas that you've identified that we could call hurricane dead zones when it comes to landfall.
And that is not just random. There are really good reasons why certain portions of our coastlines don't get as many hurricane landfalls, and a lot of them, ironically, have to do with Florida. So let's look at the Gulf Coast of Florida. Now, this is to focus on that area from north of Punta Gorda all the way up around the Big Bend to Apalachicola. And these are all the hurricanes since 1950. Now, you'll notice I put up kind of goalposts here. On the left side, you've got where Michael came ashore, Kate 85, Agnes in 72. And on the southern side, you got where Charlie and Ian have come ashore. If you take those away, there's only 4 landfalling hurricanes in that zone from Venice to Apalachicola in the last near 3/4 of a century, one major. Okay? And there's that whole Tampa to Sarasota zone, no landfalls, that Big Bend to Florida. Now, that's just one side of Florida. Let's look at the other side of Florida. There's a similar issue going on. You've got, Jean and Francis made landfall, not far from Lake Okeechobee. Then you've had Hugo up in South Carolina. You take those at the end away from Cape Canaveral to Savannah, Georgia. Since 1950, just 2 landfalling hurricanes, David and Dora. Now, we should acknowledge very quickly, though, there have been hurricane impacts. When Ian left the east coast of Florida, impacts in northeast Florida. When Matthew went right offshore, didn't make landfall, there were impacts. But there are reasons why these stretches of Florida coastline don't have landfalls. Now, a lot of it has to do with our subtropical high, our Bermuda high. It's even there right now. Down in the deep tropics, the weather systems move from east to west. And then at some point, they round that high, and then the weather systems are moving from west to east. So it's about these rounding tracks. And that pattern is so well entrenched that the sea surface temperatures are even responding to that. The Gulf Stream is there because the atmosphere moves in that direction so consistently.
It's almost like a NASCAR track, right?
Yeah, actually, it's a really good analogy. Now, you notice these are all the hurricanes that have impacted that zone in northern Florida, whether or not they made landfall on that coastline or not. And you see, almost all of them are coming in from the south, rounding that subtropical high. So you have a lot of hurricane impacts there, but here's the other reason why we don't get a lot of landfalls in the northern Florida area. It's because of southern Florida. Right, so if you imagine the central and southern Florida peninsula wasn't there, the likes of Irma, Donna, and King would have come up into northern Florida and made landfall. If Orlando was a beachfront property, they'd be getting hammered. Yeah. So would Daytona, so would Tampa.
So it's just a matter of there just being other land to hit first.
Yeah, so you get hurricanes, but there are places like Georgia and like Tampa. If you go back more than 100 years, you've had major landfalls. It can happen.
Are we overdue?